Welcome back to the show now. Hilary Abels is here. She's going to be known as Dr. A for DNTV, something that we decided to come up with. She's going to host our dental show that hopefully will make it around the world, Hilary. You've got a lot to tell on that show and a lot to say, a lot to solve. How do you feel about the show coming up?
I'm first of all very grateful for the opportunity. I'm quite excited. It's a different venture for me, it's a different challenge. So I'm quite excited and just wanting to get in there. I think it's been a long time coming because I've had an interest in drama in the media. So it's sort of just an extension of your skills, I think. And it almost feels like I'm at home.
Now, we're heading into the show in February this year. First recordings are coming up, and you've been putting a lot of work into deciding what's going into what episode. Many people will sit back and say, you know, go to the dentist, and the medical field might have a wider scope. So therefore we have all these medical shows. They might think, well, what's the dentist going to tell me? And I think that's what you need to be telling our viewers today. That when I started talking to you, I realized that the dental field was much bigger than I thought it was. And there's lots to tell people, and therefore we came up with a show. So what do we expect to see?
There's a lot, like you said, a lot going on in oral health. I don't think we need to completely isolate it from the medical field as such, but I do think it deserves a show of its own. There's a lot of issues that people have in terms of their oral cavity, the basic things like dental caries, rotten teeth, abscess, facial fractures when you've been in a car accident, what reconstruction options there are available to you. Simple things like your cultural influences. Why do people on the Cape Flats still decide to extract their 4 front teeth? I mean,
does it still happen?
It still happens. I often get requests for that. It
So
still
what do you
happens.
do? What do you
No,
do?
I refuse to. I'm one of those people who absolutely refuses to.
So if a patient comes to you and says, I'm taking my teeth out for styling and for fashion purposes, you turn them back
No,
and say
I
no.
definitely do turn them away. Not without knowledge. I do give them the different treatment options that are available. I explain to them why certain things are happening that you might be experiencing, and hope in that way to effect a change.
So you give them a lecture on it.
Not a lecture. I try to encourage them. But I often
So these are the
think,
things that we need to find out on TV.
Yes.
It's very interesting. But why don't they just take a permanent cokie and just black it out? I mean, and then when they decide they need their teeth back, just clean
then
it out.
it still would be there.
Yes.
I don't think people think long term of the repercussions. I mean, there's a lot of things that could happen. I mean, when you extract your 4 anterior teeth, the teeth are there for a purpose, not just to look pretty, it's there for function. Your face basically falls flat. It creates a flatter profile, so you look older than what you actually are. So in the show, I want to be looking at things like that, what the cultural influences are, what it was like 10, 20 years ago, and why it's still influencing people on such a huge scale. So that's one of the things that I want to be looking into.
And there you can see a level of social and peer pressure coming into a matter like a dental matter, and who'd have thought?
No, definitely. I think your social experiences, your cultural experiences affect your health in a big way. And I've seen that in practice. I've seen that definitely.
So you're starting off with issues like oral health, and then transgressing them through higher levels of issues that patients might experience. Are you also looking at advising the public on preventative measures for various things like ulcers and all those kind of things?
No, definitely. I think prevention is a big part of curbing the disease as such. So we definitely, I think initially I want to focus on preventative measures, educating people of what it is. If they experience an ulcer, I want to have a show on that and basically explain to them what that is all about, why they're experiencing that, what the different treatment options are. And like dental caries, which is rotten teeth. I mean, your teeth don't need to be rotten. If you brush twice a day, if you floss, if you have a healthier diet, it will benefit your mouth, it will benefit your body as a whole. So I definitely want to start with education and focus a lot more on preventative measures.
So when we look at the program itself and a viewer watches the program, they would be seeing you bring in a host of other specialists, for example. I know that the other day we spoke about maxillofacial surgery and how that fits into all of what you're saying. So I think the program doesn't only deal with are we extracting your teeth and keeping your teeth clean? There's much more to it, and the specialities around that. Would you be delving into lots of those issues at the same time?
I think so. Part of our purpose is educating the public. I think what the public currently knows is just extracting and making a denture, or a large percentage of the public on the Cape Flats. So we basically want to change that. So I'm going to try and bring in a few specialists so that one can actually see that there's different fields of dentistry. Initially, like you thought, dentistry is a very minute field. It's a smaller subject. Will it do as well as a medical show? But I think it definitely will, because there's a lot of specialities and a lot of issues and diseases that one can delve into, and certainly educate the public on that.
Will you be looking at matters from pediatric up down to older people and older citizens, because the problems might have, I'm not sure, but they might have different issues as children, and dealing with children might be different. Would you be dealing with all of that?
No, definitely. I want to section it basically ranging from the pediatrics to the adolescents to the adults, right up to the geriatrics, which is the older people. Definitely there would be a show for each one of them. I mean, a mom might be sitting with a child who's got teething problems, and there'd be a show for that as well.
I know that the channel is planning to open up a website for the show, so that patients and viewers can respond to you and talk to you and make requests to you and say, how do you deal with this and that and the other? You obviously know you're opening yourself up to a much wider audience, and issues not, it's going to be a around the country issue that I see coming up here. Are you dealing with issues that that could affect people in terms of, for example, medication that might affect the way that you manage your oral matters? Are you going into aspects like that?
Oh, absolutely. Because you can't isolate the mouth from the rest of the body.
Yes, correct, yes.
You definitely can't. So if the patient is taking a medication for whatever, if the patient has hypertension, for example, and comes in for an extraction, you can't necessarily just do the extraction. You need to know what the blood pressure is at the time, because that's going to affect the outcome of the treatment. It's going to affect the treatment as such. So I definitely want to be looking into that holistically.
Now, we know that in the context we found out now that A doesn't only stand for apples anymore. It's Dr. A on Dean TV and the dental show. Where did that come from?
That was a bit of brainstorming between the two of us. I came up with quite a few names, and we brainstormed of what's going to sound right and what's not going to sound right. I think for people to pronounce my whole name, Hilary Abels, is a bit too long, so just call me Dr. A. I mean, that's simple. That's the first letter of the alphabet, and that's what we together came up with.
How do you feel now that we've discussed you as a person, we discussed the show, and when we started this discussion, we were discussing the fact that you had an interest in these two fields. Now that the two has fused, finally, at this point, how do you feel about that?
I'm absolutely grateful for the opportunity. It's been a long time coming. I've always had a nudge to be in the media, be in television, be in theatre. And it's a great opportunity, because I'll be using what I do have, the skills that I do have. It's not going to go to waste. So I'm going to be using that and incorporating it into a different field. I think any experience that you have, any skill that you have is always going to come in handy. Education is not wasted. So I'm excited about the opportunity. Like you said, the two are finally gelling. So I'm absolutely excited about it.
Now, there's some people that surround you. What's their thoughts at home, your mother, the people that, are they saying, have you gone crazy, or I love what you're doing?
No, I think my family always knew that I'm a bit of a drama queen.
You don't appear that way, I must be honest with you. Always when I see you, you're very composed, very content all the time. I actually told you during the ad break that there was nothing for me to dig out the way I normally do. I normally look for things that were moments in people's lives that altered the way that they do things going forward. I never found any of those issues at all, and I sat there thinking to myself, it sounds like the perfect life, like everything is just happening at a certain pace and it stays at that frequency all the time. And now you're saying you're a drama queen, and I don't see it, I must admit. You seem too composed to be a drama queen.
Maybe it's the wrong choice of words.
But you seem to handle things very well. And you seem to not stress, I must be honest with you. We had many discussions, we sat around the table a few times, you seem to approach things very clinically.
Okay.
And I suppose I know where that's coming from. But maybe that's what's needed. It's a good combination for the dental show. You need to handle it from a clinical point of view.
No, absolutely. I think life is too short to stress about unnecessary things. The job essentially has to be done. You wasting time about stressing what ifs and what if nots. It's just an absolute waste of time. So the job just has to get done. So I think that's what just keeps me going. I know I don't stress too easily.
I love asking people this question, especially when they seem to have made it out there. And you know, for me, success is not always being a doctor or a dentist or being a channel CEO or a TV host or whatever. That's not success for me. Success for me is defined as doing what you put out for yourself and achieving that. So the benchmark was what you wanted to do in life, and if you achieve that, that is success. So I don't have a hierarchy of where I place people socially, but I place them on the fact that they've reached success when they reach that which they wanted to do. That's an important thing for me. You've reached that point, you've attained both of it now. And I'm sure there's people in your life that played a role in you getting to that point. I love asking this question because so that you pay tribute to those people. Who are they?
I think it's my family at large and my friends. I've always tried to surround myself
Surprised
with...
you said friends. Friends are normally the ones that lead you astray.
No,
so here you come and you say, my friends have helped me get to the next point.
Friends
so
that
they
I
are true
have.
friends.
Not the close friends that I have. I think my family has always played a big role in my life, the people I've surrounded myself with. I really admire my mom. She raised 6 kids on her own, basically.
Do you know, I do this all the time.
Do what
I do these shows all the time. And I ask this question many times.
And many people say their mom.
Always, I always, with all this due respect to the fathers. But you know what? I get this answer all the time. I know in your case you didn't have a father that stayed with you for many years. But the point was that it just shows you that that your mother does play that role in your life. And you know, it's a lesson to many people out there. They need to all learn to that.
Absolutely, I agree. The mom is an important figure in the life. But I do also believe that a mom can essentially not take on the role of a father. There's a certain role that a father needs to play. I think on the Cape Flats especially, the absent father is a big thing. So I do think there's a role for each one. My mom was a big role in my life, as well as the male figures in my life. My 2 older brothers, my sisters, my friends were big influences in my life. So I do think that I do respect my mom and I do admire her for what she's done for me, but I also feel it could have turned out differently if I hadn't had the other influences in my life. So one shouldn't discredit the dad. The father figure is important, and you see it on the Cape Flats. I think gangsterism and drug abuse stems from the absent father. If the father is not there to perform the role that he's supposed to be doing, then kids are going to go astray, and then you see that on the Cape Flats. Drug abuse, stick abuse is huge. And I do believe that that's because the father is absent in the home. He's either there and emotionally absent, or he's completely physically absent.
Correct, yes.
And that's a big role for a single parent to be taking on. How do you influence a child emotionally? How do you play the role of the father when you're just trying to be a mom and trying to survive?
Hilary, we've reached the end of the show. Yeah, I can see that you're going to have a lot to tell our viewers. And I like the idea that you bring the world into the context of what you're doing. And that's important. Thank you for joining me today. I hope I've done justice to our interview. Hilary Abels, known as Dr. A on DNTV. Coming up soon, the dental show in February. Watch out for it. Until next time, goodbye.